a few topics that I wanted to go over. And I think a lot of times we just have challenges, and you can see my hat, make offers, not excuses. But for a lot of people, that's the point where it gets a little intimidating. Finally, we go through and we have the tools and the education, but it's to actually do that. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit, but I just wanted to share my screen a little as well. And just a reminder of what's in the library here. And so if you haven't reviewed the library, sometimes it's good just to go through and review again. But a couple of weeks ago, we had Jesse with Pebble. Before that, it was make offers and be persistent equals deals. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit more tonight. A title agent. And there's some people here that are service providers. September 4th was Jim Ingersoll talking about wrap mortgages, and that can help us close more deals. But just as an idea, if you can, go back through here. And in Florida, we have Al Nicoletti, that's a probate attorney, and he's in here as well. And with the probate attorney that will get paid out of escrow as opposed to upfront, that can help us do a lot more deals. And here it is, April 25th, probate solutions with attorney Al Nicoletti. Because right now, if I go to the seller and the property's in the deceased parent's name, the seller doesn't want to pay for probate. I don't want to pay for probate because there's a risk I put out $3,500 and the deal doesn't close. Al Nicoletti's come together with a pretty good solution to do that. So we can go ahead and provide a solution to the seller. It's a good solution to us, and Al Nicoletti will go ahead and do that. So as you continue to go through here, I just recommend review the library. There's a lot of content in there. And the other thing, we did Jim Ingersoll's today. He put it in his library already. He had a good turnout. It went for about an hour, and there's a couple of good reviews there. But I did want to talk about briefly anything that you guys need, but also talk about making offers. And we can go ahead and I can pull up properties that you guys can actually go ahead and make offers on now. The ones that make sense, the sniper approach as opposed to the shotgun approach. I'll show you a few ways that I'll do that as well. But as I go ahead and search just Pensacola here, and I'm going to start adding in some filters of potential people that we can make offers on very quickly, or we can look in your market areas as well. So obviously I want to do vacant land, find owners that have owned for a long period of time, owned by individuals. They live out of state or out of the county. And I'm going to put number of properties owned. I'm going to put a maximum of 3 or 4. So they're not professional landlords. Put the maximum number of properties owned 4. And let's see what happened to our list. So now we've got 134 properties, but what I want to search for now is ones that actually tried to sell it on the multiple listing and they failed. So we're going to go to status, failed. And as I showed today, I'm going to go back from about 3 years to about 8 years here and put in today's date, but go back about 3 years. And so now let's see what happened to our number here on the right. We have, it went down to 3. And then I'm going to show you an example of one we did using the exact technique. There we go, the appraiser's website. And it was this property right here. And you can see in 2022, we bought the property for $10,300. In 2019, 3 years before, the person that we bought it from tried to sell this property for $10,000. It was a failed MLS listing 3 years prior to when I got it. So I knew she tried to sell it for $10,000. I just took her name. I used a tool like IDI Core. I skip traced her and got on the phone with her and offered her $300 more than she tried to sell it 3 years before. But from when she tried to sell it till when I made my offer, I had 3 years of appreciation. So we got it under contract for $10,300. And as soon as we got it under contract, I started marketing the property. So in that time that we were marketing it, we found an end buyer and we closed for $10,300. And 3 days later, we sold it to a builder for $25,000. So that came from the failed MLS listings, similar to these. And these are failed MLS listings. The one thing that I have to find out though, even though they failed maybe 5 or 6 years ago, they still own the property. So I'll click on this link here and I can see years of ownership, 21 years rather. So they tried to sell it for $47,000. It was on the market for a year. And this was, I don't know, about 5.5 years ago. So from 5.5 years ago to now, I'm assuming there's been substantial appreciation. It may mean also this was listed way too high. So what I would do as I go through my process, I like to click on linked properties to see how many properties they own. And they own 4 properties. They've got about $1 million worth of equity, which kind of tells me that they live in Virginia. They have this one property in Pensacola, but it gives me an indicator they don't necessarily need the money. So I can see there, and then I would go to comparables and try to get an idea of what the current market value of the property is.
Again, Michael, that value means nothing, that 161?
For PropStream, these numbers are not very good for land. A lot of times it will bring up housing information. But the other thing that I would do is go ahead and take this address here. And as I'm going through my due diligence, I'd go to the appraiser's website here, put the property in, and get an idea. How long have they owned it? What's it assessed at? And I'm just going through the process before I call them. So this is the property again here. It's assessed at approximately $40,000. And typically where I am, it's worth about double that. That's not a perfect science there, but I can see that it looks like they bought it for $13,000, I don't know, 37, 38 years ago. They live out of the area. And I can also, on the appraiser site, I'm using various tools. And I want to see, this is a private road here. I've looked at properties here, but I just want to go through my due diligence. Is it wetlands? And there's wetlands over here, but not near the subject. Easements, because this is a dirt road here, and it looks good. Flood zones here. But what we do know is they tried to sell it for $47,500 about 5 years ago. They still own the property. And then the next thing that I would do is go to vacant sales. And I'm actually looking for comps right here on the same street, because most of the streets here are paved. This is a dirt road, and see what we can find here. So as I look here for comps, here's one across the street sold for $60,000, quite a bit larger, but it looks like someone flipped it. It looks like someone flipped it very quick for $140,000, $52,000. I don't have perfect comparables, but the other thing I'd look at, I'm going to uncheck this, and I'm going to look at improved just to see what properties are selling for here. Is it $200,000 neighborhood? Is it a $400,000 neighborhood? It looks like I have one sale right there. And what I would go, I'm going to uncheck this, and I'm going to go back to the vacant sales. And what I want to find out is what's going on with this transaction here. How big is it compared to ours? And again, ours is 2 acres. And this one here is 8. This is 8 acres, but I can look at this specific property, and it's assessed for double ours. It sold for $60,000 in 2019, and then in 2021 it sold for $140,000. The one we're looking at, our seller tried to sell it in 2019, but you can see the increase in value between 2019 to 2021. So that's one of the reasons when I'm looking at expired MLS listings, and these are just guidelines from about 3 years ago to about 8 years ago, I'm going to have a certain amount of appreciation. Again, I don't have a perfect price for this, but the next thing that I would do if I wanted to would be to go back to ours and just go through the due diligence process that we went over a little bit today. I'm going to close some of these windows. And when we did that, I went to the recorder's office. And since I just put these bookmarks up since today here, and I can search by name. And so we're doing due diligence on the property and due diligence on the people. So the people's last name. So I'm just trying to find out what's recorded in their name. And it's not a common name, so I doubt that I'm going to get a lot. But I can see pretty much everything that's recorded in their name. And what I like to sort by is newest to oldest and see what's going on now. But you can see here, liens, release of liens. And what I would do also is go to the property record and look at their tax history and see, are they paying their taxes? They've got a lot of equity in their property in Virginia, and it's paid in full. And you can see the tax history has been, for the last 10 years, they're paying it pretty much on time. It looks like they might have had some financial bumps here, and property, they didn't pay the taxes. The certificate was issued here. And when I look at the liens, it was probably about the same time frame, 2013. It was going to tax, looks like it was going to tax deed sale here. So it looks like they did have some financial issues. I don't have a perfect indicator for the value at this point, but what we do know is they tried to sell it for $47,500 about 5 or 6 years ago. I can read the comments here. And when they tried to sell it, it was on the market for a year. So then the next thing that I would do is continue to do a little bit of homework and try to nail the value. Where this one's a little difficult to comp is it's not really a conforming neighborhood. There's one road out here that's rural. This one right here. I could try to Google Earth it, which I don't think I'm going to have a lot of luck. But
Michael, what's the assessed value? Is it
yeah,
40?
it's assessed at 40,000 basically.
So couldn't you just say it's at least worth 80?
Probably. And when we looked at the comps here, this one here is 4 times larger, and it sold for 140, and that was about 4 years ago. So if I took 140,000 divided by 8 acres, 17,500 an acre. Yeah, that would only give ours a value of 35,000, but that was again approximately 4 years ago. Let's see if there's any other comps here. This one's also on the same street, and this one sold for 75,000, and it was 8 acres. That was again five years ago. The other 8 acre one sold for 140,000. Just a guesstimate. A guesstimate would be that ours is probably worth $80,000 to $90,000 so far. But the other thing, I would do some additional appraisal work on it. I would put in this zip code here, 32506. We can do an advanced search for vacant land, acreage. I'm going to put 1 to 9. I'm going to pull up our zip code. And it's not an infill lot, so there are going to be a lot fewer comps. And I'm going to look for sales for the last year and do a search. And here's in this zip code, like Blue Angel is a busy street. So these may not be good comps, but I just want to see what else is going on here. But 1 acre for 40,000, 2 acres for 80,000, 5 acres for 120. So it looks like 1 acre for 70,000. So from about 30,000 to 40,000 an acre. So I'd look at ours, and if I'd looked at the assessed value of ours, $40,000, they tried to sell it for $47,500 5 years ago. I would guess it's probably in the $80,000 price range, somewhere in there. So the next thing I would do is go to IDI Core that we did today. Here, log in. And so I'm just doing a background on them. But what I can find out is how old they are as well. Do a person search. But here she is right here, 68 years old. There's probably a current cell phone number. Again, the property is in her name and also Jamie's. So I'd like to find out how old they are, what's going on. But look, we see they had a bankruptcy in 2014. And at the same time, when we went to the public records, we could see that they had liens in 2014. And when I pulled up the property, the actual property here, and we looked at the tax history, when they had all these issues, was approximately right here, 2014. This is when they had their financial issues, continuing to go into IDI. So they had bankruptcies, and I can click on that. They had liens, we can click on that. But I like to click on criminal infractions and business affiliation, see what kind of business they work at. So we'll click on criminal, and it can be just a speeding ticket. So we click on that, let's see if it'll load. Here we go. Failed to yield right away, failed to appear. Accumulation of solid waste, I don't know. Failed to keep the site clean. They may have had code enforcement liens. Failure to vaccinate for rabies. And sometimes they're minor and sometimes they're major, but it just helps me know a little bit more about their character. And then I like to look at business affiliations and see what type of businesses are they affiliated with. Okay, this is business here. Managing director, managing member of Bobby Eddings. I'm not quite sure what that is. Sometimes you'll see their plumbing businesses or what have you. Here's a website, Lumparoli, whatever that is, Lumpia House. It looks like maybe it's some kind of restaurant. I'm not quite sure. And I can see the dates on there. Is it current or not? But this is 2010. So basically, we started with failed MLS listings, went back 3 to 8 years, and we narrowed it down to people that had 4 properties or less because it's typically mom and pop. And we'll go back to our filters here. And we also put in ownership information, and we put out of state and out of county. If I put in local, I could do that as well. And that number is probably going to grow. So now we have 9. And I wouldn't be adverse to picking local people to see if they make sense. And then just to look at another one, this one, they've owned it for 20 years. This is more of an infill lot. It's a lot easier to comp. The guy lives in Pensacola. The property's in Pensacola. I can see he owns it for 20 years. He tried to sell it 6 years ago for $75,000. It says it was only on the market for 1 day. So sometimes when I'm putting my filters in there, I'll go ahead and put under MLS information. I want to make sure it's exposed to the market. So I would put in here days on the market, and I put in a minimum of 60. So they actually tried to sell it. If it's on the market for 1 day, they don't have any pain points. And so it went from 9 down to 5, but it did add in a couple more properties. Hollywood would be another one. They've owned it for 20 years. I don't know if this is the same one I just clicked on. No, this is a different one. On the market for 142 days, $92,000. But that's just the process I go through, especially if I want to make an offer quickly. It's similar to these people here, Alicia. And so let's go ahead and give her a call. And so when it's live, you're not quite sure what kind of response you're going to get, but here it goes. Okay, so I'm looking for Alicia just to refresh my memory. Look at the property on Havberg.
Welcome to Verizon Wireless. Your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the number and dial.
So then I'll go on to the next one here. Anyway, I didn't have any success with the phone number, but that would be the process that I'd go through. And what I would do next here, and it shows Alicia here, and typically it will show a spouse here. And on the appraiser site, we have Alicia and Jamie. And I don't know if Jamie was a spouse or is a spouse. We could go to, if it showed spouse here, I'd just click on that, and then I'd have his information, I believe, do a search. And now here's Jamie, which I'm assuming it's probably the husband, 74 years old. And I would just go through the same process, call him. And again, I see liens, bankruptcies, probably the same as hers as well. But that's pretty much the process I go through. And that's exactly what I did on the one that we bought for $10,300 and turned around and sold it for $25,000. It was the exact same process, building a list of expired MLS listings from a certain, we've got some inflation since then, some appreciation. Skip traced them, called them up, and made an offer. The challenge with hers is, but I'd have the dialogue anyway, and then we can nail the value. And say, can I get your permission to visit the property? What is your estimate of value? What do you think it's worth? What's that based on? What do you need to get out of it? And I'd go through that process and just see if we could reach an agreement. But where I'd put some more work in here is trying to nail this value here. But again, you get a property like this, copy this, Google Earth it. I don't have Google Earth bookmarked. I would Google Earth it, and I doubt the Google guy went down that street. So I probably can't get a street view of it and have the dialogue with them. And then what my goal would be is to negotiate the best deal I could. And I'd probably give them 3 offers. I'd give them an offer for seller financing, give them an offer to close in 120 or 120 days or so, because then I can go ahead and have plenty of time for due diligence and to market the property. And I'd give them a very low offer to close in 2 weeks, because if I have to close in 2 weeks, that's going to be painful. And they tried to sell it for $47,500. It's assessed for $38,000. If it was cash, closed in 2 weeks, I'd probably be at $35,000, because I'm taking some risk. I don't have great comps, but that would be the process I'd go through. Does that seem to make sense?
Yes, it's just a lot of steps, Michael.
Yeah, it is steps. Sometimes though, that's what keeps other people from doing it. Sometimes I find a county or a non-disclosure state and people are worried about that. If I can do something that they can't do, it gives me an advantage.
Absolutely, if you can remember all the steps.
Yeah, and that's why this is recorded.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
why it's recorded.
Yeah.
So we've got James here and Chris here as well. But if do you want me to put in another area and just see what might be in your area? Again, Texas is non-disclosure, so it's a little bit trickier. But that's typically a way that I can do a deal pretty quickly. It's the expired MLS listings. And then the other one is the tax deed sales. One we went over today. This property has a house here, but this was an example. And we went through and did some due diligence. But this family's going to lose this property a month from today, and it's probably worth 200 and something thousand. There may be liens up to 100,000. I'm not sure, but we just went here from Maryland, Glee's. I went to the recorder's office, close some of these windows here, and just went through the same process. I put her name in there. Here, we'll put in Maryland, and I want to find out everything in her name from the county, look at the property, and I couldn't find anything there. And then I went to IDI Core and I put her name in here. Here she is. And Maryland, that has this property right here. And you can see there's no sales history. So she probably bought this 40, 50 years ago. It gave me an indicator she's deceased. And then I went to the recorder. I went to IDI Core. And here she is. She's passed away at some point, but very quickly. Here is her daughter right there. And so I could go ahead and get her daughter on here. And here's the numbers. And I'd go through the same thing, look at comps, see if there's any issues. But if I want to do a deal quick, this property is going to sale March 5th, and they're not paying the taxes. This is about this property. We can see here how far they're behind on the taxes. And I think they're behind about 10 years. So when it's getting ready to go to sale, the county will order a preliminary title report. This is it, the property information report. And as I scroll down, let's see how many years are behind on the taxes. It may show and it may not, but they're chronically delinquent on the taxes. And where I can get that is back here. And I'm going to click on the taxes. And when it's going to tax deed sale, they remove from the website the delinquent taxes. But what I can see, how many years they removed them. And you can see they're not available to going back 13, 14 years worth of delinquent taxes. So again, going to the property, and I would just call Carrie right here and just have a conversation with her. I'm looking at the property on 2480 East Burgess, and it looks like a property we'd be very interested in. And I'd just be upfront with her. I said, I see it's going to tax deed sale March 5th. Would you consider entertaining an offer for it? And if you needed to, I could take care of any back taxes and probate as well, and try to have a dialogue. But that would be an example. I'm not doing improved properties right now, but that's a house. But that's just an example of going back to the tax deed sale list. And this is March. And when I go out to April, there will be a whole bunch of other ones that I can go through as well. A lot of these are houses. A certain percentage of them are going to be vacant land as well. So those are the two techniques I use if I want to do a deal quick. It's properties that are going to tax deed sale, and back here, expired MLS listings. So there are steps involved, but Don, if you wanted to do that, I could just do it with you. We could go through, we could pull them up, we could go through the research, we could hop on the phone call together with the seller. If you're not 100% sure what to say, we could have that dialogue. And I would just need an area to do a search and see if it's something that made sense.
Okay.
I mean,
I'll come up with a
we don't
few.
have to,
Yeah.
we don't have to do the phone call right now, but let's just do research for an area.
North Carolina, but I can't think of the county. Was it Brunswick? Brunswick. See, you don't know the website.
Yeah, it would take me a little while to get up to speed with the websites, but we could just do prop stream for right now.
Yeah.
Brunswick County. And I would just go through the same filter process. Vacant land. We could do residential vacant land. The more filters, the smaller the list is going to get. And for some, it didn't like that. Some counties are like that. So we'll go ahead and just do vacant land. So we've got 52,000, and we go to MLS information, go to failed.
Yep.
And we go to the time frame, go back about 8 years. You can go back as long as you want. That's just what I do. 2017 to about 2022. And I put on minimum days on the market.
60.
40 or yeah, we'll go to 60. You just want to make sure it was exposed. So it wasn't one day and they changed their mind.
Mhm.
So now we're down to 355, and we're going to sort by owner information, years of ownership, 20. And the more filters, the smaller the list is going to get. I go to number of properties owned. We'll do individuals here, type of ownership. Individuals, out of state, 19. Let's see what other filter we might want. Number of properties owned. I usually put a low number. I don't want someone that owns 100 properties. I want the mom and pop that just want to get rid of it. Ownership information, number of properties owned. I typically go about 4, and now we have 17. So then I would just look at these and kind of spot check some of them. When I click on it, if the new person only owns it for 2 years, we know the people subsequently sold it. 43 years. These people need to sell this property. They live out of state. MLS details. They tried to sell it, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago for $27,000. Then, not knowing the county websites, I would go into we could look at comparables, or we could go into the appraiser's website.
Yeah, that was on the market a long time.
Yeah, comparables. We'll take a quick peek at it. And great lot. It looks like a double lot. It's on a great paved road. Try to get an idea. But at first glance, it looks pretty good. Half acre. Yeah, on the market for 208 days. They're 110 years old. Linked property. See what else they own? This is the only property they own. Oh, no, they have their house and they have this property in North Carolina. They're never going to use this property. They tried to sell it and it failed. And if they bought this property when, I forgot which one it was, but if they bought this property when they were 30, they're 73. If they bought it when they were 40, they're in their 80s. And so then I would just go ahead and run comps. We can look at comparables here and see if we come up with anything. Vacant land. And what I like to look at here is distance. Give me an idea for some comps. So here's some vacant land that's right there. I'm not sure if ours is in the same. Ours is Central Boulevard. These comps are right here in Central Boulevard, right here. So they may be good. Scroll back over, see what they're selling for. Ours is a half acre. See if it has parcel size, lot size. 10,000 square feet. Ours is a double lot right here. Ours is more. We'll see what a single lot's selling for right there. And this person bought this lot 3 months ago. It's right there on your street. It sold for $70,000. That puts ours at $140,000. You know, it's the same size. You could see when we looked at ours, I think I closed the filters out. When we looked at ours was a double lot. They've tried to sell for $27,000. I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago. The single lot just sold for 70 right here. That's ours right there. And you can see when I click on this, see how ours is a double lot and the other ones on Central right there are single lots. It could probably be subdivided, and the comps sold half the size. And this is a quick look for this presentation. I would dig in a little bit further, but first look, these ones they're all right there. They're on Central Boulevard. Ours is on Central Boulevard. 3 months. And this is the same one that I clicked on before. But just quick glance, it looks like it's worth maybe up to 140,000. I would look at more than one comparable. Then I would take their name and I'd go ahead and put it in IDI Core, and I'd skip trace them, and then I would just call them. So that's I want to do a deal now method. And I know it's difficult many times to get on the phone and just call them. But again, here's comparables here. We'll see if we can find some more. Here's a half acre here. Yeah, this one sold for 50,000. So I would look at more comparables, make sure that find what is most comparable, figure out what the value is. But they tried to sell for $27,000. They're probably in their mid 80s, and I would just call them and have a discussion. And you could use the 3-offer technique, seller financing. I could offer them a little bit more. I could say, we'll close in 120 days. I'm going to need to do diligence, may need to get a survey. That's going to typically take about 8 weeks. And during that time, I can be marketing the property. I have no risk. And if they wanted cash, I would probably be at, and here, this one here, comparable, this was purchased by a builder, CMH Homes right there. That could be a potential buyer for you. This is a builder that bought this one. And if I'm still not sure about the value, the next thing I do is pull up sales and talk to a few realtors that had sold some of these properties right there and get their opinion. If I was to list it with you and I want to sell it in under 60 days, what do you think we should list it for?
Would you tell them anything about the property? You would identify the property even though you don't really have it under contract yet?
The agent?
Yeah.
No, what I do with the agent is, let's assume this was one that sold on MLS. What I do with the agent, say, I see you sold this property on Central Boulevard that's a half acre. I'm buying one on Central Boulevard that's approximately a half acre. If I was to list it with you and I want to sell it in 60 days or less, what do you think we should sell it for? I wouldn't give them the specific address. I just say,
What are you buying? Yes. What are you buying?
oh, if they say, just say, I'm negotiating with the seller. It's one very similar to you. I don't have it under contract yet. If I do get it, I'd like to talk to you about listing it.
Yeah.
That way they're encouraged because they just sold one. They may have backup buyers for you as well. I'd like to talk to you about listing it. And you don't have to give them the property address. Or
Right.
if you were comfortable and use, I'm very trusting. Sometimes I'll just give them the appraiser link. Say, what do you think? And I have heard about realtors going around people occasionally. That'd be up to you, how much information you want to share with them. But this one's almost identical. This is our subject. And there's double lots. There's numerous vacant lots right here. It looks like ours is a great one. They've had it for 43 years. And then the next thing I would do is get familiar with the county, the appraiser's website, look at what it's assessed at. And it may have it in prop stream right here. Look at what it's assessed at, property details. Yeah, this is assessed at $30,000. It's assessed at more than what they tried to sell it for, and it failed. Link property.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
It'll be worth a phone call.
Yeah, this is a good one. That would be one I'd do. And so we came up with, I think, 17 or so, and I'll go through. Here's Arnold Palmer. They've owned it for 20 years. I just go through the same process because a lot of these will go through subsequently sold. We'll see they owned it for 20 years. All these look good so far. Also, here's one, 20 years. And sometimes I'll click on one and the new person bought it and they've owned it for 3 months. The people that tried to sell it they don't own the property anymore. Here's another one right here. Same thing, MLS information. They tried to sell it for $24,000 7 years ago, on the market for, I don't know, a year and a half right there, and it failed. And so these people here 20 years ago, say they bought it when they were 40, who knows? They're probably in their 60s. Looks like a great lot, nice houses. They live out of state, and it was on MLS and it failed. I don't think this is probably a private road. The Google guy didn't look like he went down here. So that's the process that I'd go through. So if you want to do some, we can do them in the next day or two. And I would just go through this. If you want, we can go ahead and do the due diligence. If you wanted to do Brunswick County, maybe I'd go ahead and get a little familiar with the appraiser's website. The tools I use the recorder's office and see what else is in their name. The appraiser's website.
I would look at that tomorrow. I don't have prop stream, so that's my issue.
Yeah, we can do it.
Yeah.
And we'll just duplicate this process. So anyway, this is recorded. We'll put it in the library tomorrow. Everyone can go through and watch it again, and then just duplicate this process. The tool that does help me, you don't have to have it, but IDI Core helps because I could see some of the previous ones we looked at. They had bankruptcies, liens, and all that. The one we looked at, Havberg, and then they've owned it for many years. They tried to sell it, it failed, and that's how I did the one on Antioch here. We bought for 10.3 and turned around and sold it for 25. It was a failed MLS listing. So hopefully that gives you guys some insight.